I see Hope has her hand up.
Mhm.
Yes.
Hi, Hope.
Am I
Oh,
unmuted?
you are
Yeah.
unmuted.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Okay. I would just, and hi, Chip and Jan, it's great to see you and
Lovely to see
you
you.
participating in this. I was just thinking back to the first time I had any intimations of the three principles, which wasn't actually articulated, in any way. My sister Jane and I were in a car. We hadn't seen Jane in many, many years, and we were getting back together. And we were driving along, and my sister and I were doing what we always do, which is like to rant on about all the things that are wrong with the world. And we were like going on and on. And and then we suddenly became aware, or gradually became aware of the deafening silence in the back seat. And it was funny. I don't even think we brought it up and acknowledged it. I think, but what I remember very distinctly is that I suddenly became very reflective on myself. And I started thinking, it made me very self-conscious about what I was doing. And as I thought about it, it really started making me think about like, well, what am I doing? What, and Jane didn't say anything. And then it wasn't until later that it eventually kind of came out, because suddenly, eventually my sister and I said, Jane, what is going on? Because in many ways, Jane had been relating a lot of things that she had gone through in her life, which were quite, tragic. And she's like sitting there with this ebullience and this wonderful disposition. And we were, we were like, what is, how is this possible? And then Jane started telling us about the three principles. And I just love the fact that, that's the way Jane did it. It's like she wasn't proselytizing, she wasn't offering, she was just kind of living it and making us aware through, the fact that just who she was and how she was responding in ways that were not the typical ways. And we knew Jane way back in high school, and Jane was like a revolutionary, she, this was a passionate person. So we're like, what is going on? So anyway, that was, that was really wonderful. And it also made me very much aware of the power of silence. That when, and you were talking earlier, I think, Chip, about how, when you argue, and you're an argumentative person and you're passionate about things and you feed on this, you really expect somebody to be responding on the other side, and it makes you uncomfortable and you feel insecure when you're not getting it. And so in many ways, Jane's silence was more eloquent than anything she could have said to us, maybe at the time, that she got us to look inside. I mean, that was what it was. It was like I was all outward and like arguing, and everything was out there. And then by her silence, I just started becoming self-conscious about what I was doing, and I started examining myself and questioning myself. So it was a wonderful experience. And I also just want to thank you, Chip and Jan, for, I've been out to Salt Spring twice to the schools, and it was just wonderful, just a really transformative experience for me. And so I appreciate so much what you're doing and what so many people here have been doing as you spread this message of Sid. I don't know if this is the time for it, but I did have something, Jan said something earlier that kind of struck me. And I don't know if it's one of these things that might be obvious to other people, but it kind of struck me. And I thought that's a really good way of thinking about it. She said that, behavior is a distraction. And I believe I understand what Jan means by that, but I was wondering, at some point, it doesn't have to be now if you want to move on to other people, but I was hoping to hear you say a little bit more about that, that behavior is a distraction.
Well, thank you. Thank you for everything you shared. That's so true. And I could just picture that scene with Jane just sitting in her calmness and wisdom. So thank you, Hope. And we always loved having you here when you came.
For sure.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that, to me, that's so huge. That was, to me, if we are all this beautiful true self, and that true self is absolute pure love, and pure understanding, health, everything to an infinite degree, then what gets in the way is us believing in our personal self. And the personal self, the way it is experienced in this world, is we are human beings. We do and we talk, and that's behavior. And so when I used to, before I got some understanding, other people's behavior could offend me. I would see it as that it had something either against me, or even if it didn't, it was bothersome to me. And so I was always at the mercy of other people's behavior. Plus, added to that fact that I felt down on myself for my own behavior that I didn't like. And so if it's true that who we really are in our essence is this absolute beautiful, pure spiritual essence, then the behavior, if it's negative behavior going on around us, it can make us believe falsely that that person's a bad person because of what they just said, or they're against me, or the world's against me. So that's why, to me, it's such a gift to know that now when other people behave in a way that I find offensive, I don't have to buy into that drama. I can realize that that has to be coming from their personal self and not from their true self. So to me, it helps me in so much every day. And what you said about when people don't say something, that saves our relationship every day, because we used to have to react to everything that the other person said or did.
Yeah.
And that just kept the game going, it kept that engagement going. And when we now, like, we don't feel like we have to address what the other person did unless there's something dramatic that's ongoing. And once in a while we may say, well, there's something I wanted to, ask you about. But for the most part, I've learned to ignore other people's behavior and negative behavior. And it's easier to do that now. I never thought I could even do that. And sometimes now I surprise myself that something happened that used to irritate me so much, and it just doesn't even register anymore.
That makes for a much nicer life.
Definitely.
It's like you're talking about seeing psychological innocence, that everybody's got stuff they're caught up in, and if we take it personally, then we're in it too. And it's our behavior going. But there was a theme I was hearing. I love when George Pransky used to talk about having a unifying theme. Well, I was hearing it through the last few conversations. And the unifying theme that I was hearing was that when you live it and you take care of yourself, no matter what anybody else is doing, you end up breaking the pattern with people. Right? Everybody has a pattern with each other. Like you say this, I do that. So when you just live and you're not caught up in what other people are doing, that breaks the pattern, and it opens up the possibility of them breaking their own pattern and seeing something different. And that's what's happened from the very beginning. I can tell you this for sure, that when Sid has experience and told Barb, his wife Barb at the time, and his mother-in-law, it definitely broke the pattern. It really did. It broke the pattern. When Jan kept pulling back and just not participating in that stuff with me, that behavior, it broke the pattern. Breaking the pattern gave me a chance at curiosity. When the first couple of inmates in the prisons that we worked in, all of a sudden were happy and not complaining about life and just enjoying themselves and looking forward to the future, I can tell you that really broke the pattern.
And it's helpful to notice the pattern, but it's not helpful to figure out the pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
Or figure that you have to notice it, because it's one of those things, because I can see people over the years have gotten caught up in that thing when they realize, oh, I do this out of habit, or I do that. Then they're starting to try and get ahead of it, right? Get behind the 8 ball. And so what do they end up doing? Thinking about their habit, and the habit just comes from thought. So to me, what helped me more than anything, I think, when I first met Sid, was that I stopped trying to analyze it and figure out where I was going wrong and what my patterns were, and just forget about it. And but when it happens to occur to you that you notice it,
Yeah.
that's valuable. But trying to even think about it, that's when, like, we don't really talk about it that
No,
much, but
no.
because people are tempted that, well, now I'm going to be smart and I'm going to figure it out.
I'm gonna catch all my patterns.
Right.
Good luck with that.